back to some more Draft Dominator features. This time we're going to take a look at how breaking down player projections for every week of the season is going to help dominate your draft. So the first thing we're going to look at is how we have these projections broken down for each player for every week of the season. What we're looking at here is these alarm bell icons. So Tom Brady, he's got an orange alarm, and whenever you see any of these icons in the app, if you click on the player and then take a look at the top of the player card over here, it's going to explain exactly what that means. So you can see here, Tom Brady has a bye-week clash, week 10, with 1 out of 2 players at the same position. So if we have a look on our roster again, you can see here Deshaun Watson, his bye is week 10. So that's what that alarm bell is indicating to us. The best tool in the app, however, for picking up last players at the position is complementary players. So this is one of the features that we brought over from the old school Draft Dominator Classic application. And take a look first at Deshaun Watson's schedule. And you're going to see that a lot of, because he's our better of the 2 quarterbacks that we've drafted, at least in terms of projections, you can see that a lot of the weeks that the Draft Dominator has identified as poor weeks for us in terms of quarterback play are also obviously poor weeks for Deshaun Jackson. So he's got a tough matchup there in week 2 versus Jacksonville. And you can see that's the case for a lot of the other weeks there as well. So his byes week 10 and week 11, and those are both highlighted there. However, this week 3, is not listed among them, even though that's, I think, his second lowest projection of the entire year. Well, that's because when we take a look at the schedule for Lamar Jackson, week 3 there at Kansas City, that's going to be a shootout. So we've got him at a high points projection. So again, for your third quarterback, we're just not interested in week 3. We feel like we have week 3 covered. And it's great to have a feature like this and to see how much it changes ranks. We've got Phillip Rivers, Josh Allen, and then Matthew Stafford as the top 3 guys. If we go back to the list, and we just list it for quarterbacks who are still on the board, ranked for the rest of the season, the order is Allen, Murray, Brady, and you've got Rivers there in 4 and Stafford there down in 6th. So really does change your rankings. Great way of picking up players just to complete your roster and make sure that you don't have players on bye at the same time or anything nasty like that. And the last way we're going to be able to help you with using projections broken down on a weekly basis is with our weekly weights. So a couple of different reasons why you might use this. The first is you might have divisional or conference matchups in certain weeks of the season which are more important to you. So week 2, for instance, might be one of those weeks. So we might want to put that at 200%. And then you might be having what you might think is going to be a really easy matchup in week 3. So you might put that to 5%. What the Draft Dominator is then going to do is it's essentially going to double week 2's projections for all players and more or less 0 week 3, and then add them all back up to get a total fantasy points total, which it will then feed into the rest of the rankings algorithms. One key thing to note here, we will zero out week 17 for the majority of your leagues. When we import the leagues, we're going to take a look at the league schedule from wherever the league is hosted and try and work out if you do play in the playoffs in week 17. And if you do, we will leave that at 100. The couple of presets we've got here, if you want to optimize your chances of just reaching the playoffs, you can hit this reaching playoffs button. So that's going to take weeks 14, 15, 16, or whenever your fantasy playoffs are down significantly, but put everything else up. So that'd be playing for a strategy of just trying to get in the playoffs and then riding our luck once we get there. The opposite of that, if you're confident of making the playoffs in your league, is to go up to 200 for those playoff weeks and down to 50 for everything else. So you're confident of making the playoffs and you'll play it a little bit risky. That's the way to go. And again, you can see that this will make something of a difference to the rankings list. So again, we had Allen, Murray, and Brady as standard. So changing those weekly weights, we now get Brady, Garoppolo, and Murray. So things shift around a lot, especially when we're looking at quarterbacks with weekly weights, which is why it's really important to optimize and take a look at projections broken down, strength of schedule across the whole year, and to have a system that can do that for you automatically during your draft.